Hey, what's up guys, it's your fitness trainer Joey, and after my previous video talking about what went wrong with the US men's national team, it is time to talk about what needs to be done from here on in. There have been a lot of people who have suggested certain ideas of everything that has to happen, and frankly, I don't think they're focusing on the right things that need to happen, so let me go over what needs to happen from a top-down perspective for the US men's national team. So, first things first, there has to be a total change of everything that's supposed to happen. There is a level of arrogance that surrounds the U.S. Soccer Federation as a whole that simply needs to go. One of the biggest quotes that helped me lead to there is the current U20 and technical director of the U.S. Soccer. I believe he is still the technical director, but I know he is still the U20 coach, and that is Tab Ramos. He decided to go, or he went to Europe to learn about the game, to learn what he can from Europeans. And when he went there, he said he was actually very surprised by the fact that the Europeans were asking him what he knew and trying to get some information out of him and to learn from Tab Ramos. Now, we can unpack this for a little bit here. First off, going to the Europeans, as far as tactical and player development, are probably bar none at this point the best. You can obviously point to Brazil and Argentina and some clubs in South America, but Europe has developed more talent, I would say. That is where all the talent seems to go. That's where the money is in both the high and lower end. That's where everyone wants to end up. So you have Europeans who could theoretically be the most arrogant, going in and finding a U.S. soccer coach who came to them looking to learn and trying to learn from them. That is the level at which the best operate. They try and learn from anywhere and everywhere they can and incorporate it into their own. You have in the U.S., you have a lot of coaches who are set in their ways, who think they know better than anyone else. All right, so you've got, you know, if you look at coaches, especially through the youth system, you go and you talk to them about anything, or you try and suggest anything to them, you will be met with a level of arrogance to the point that this coach knows better than you. They know what they're talking about. You don't. You should just listen to them. They have one reason or another as to why they aren't the national team coach, or they aren't running the show, and it's a level of arrogance that has definitely hurt U.S. soccer. So in order to completely change that and change the mentality, you need to have Sunil Gulati go as the U.S. president for the Soccer Federation. That may end up hurting the U.S.'s triple bid with Canada and Mexico for the World Cup. Frankly, any president can still pick up the slack there, but we have to decide whether we want to be just some promotional country that occasionally makes it to the World Cup but's never really a contender, or we have to be a team that's looking to contend, looking to compete for the World Cup. And I feel like a lot of fans want to be competing for that World Cup. So if we end up losing that bid, which in all likelihood we might, considering England, who would be one of the best places to host a World Cup, lost out to Qatar for the 2022 World Cup. So the likelihood that the best option will be picked by FIFA is not there. Bribes are a thing, social justice, or whatever FIFA calls it, can and will hurt the US's chances for bidding for this World Cup. And I would rather have something that's completely in our control, which is development as a nation, as a soccer nation, and trying to compete. So Gulati needs to go. So who are the candidates who have been suggested, or are putting forth their name for there? So the first one you have is Steve Gans, who is a Boston lawyer. I could not find much about his beliefs or what he does outside of, you know, legal sports representation. He's been around the game for 25 years, but you know, it's not that hard to be someone around the game. Fans have been around the game for longer than that. So I looked for some of his opinions on U.S. soccer, and all I have is just he went on a listening tour to a bunch of youth programs around the country, and his only real comment that I could find was about the contract extension for Klinsmann around the 2014. And I mean, everyone pretty much had that opinion in there, so it's not really this something that separates him from the crowd. Next, you have Paul Lapointe, another Massachusetts man. He runs the current UPSL Amateur League in the United States. His big thing is proposing a promotion relegation system for everyone below MLS, but that's seen as too radical. And in my opinion, the domestic side is not the part that's necessarily hurting. It's how the domestic side promotes players. I feel like you need to change a lot more than just proposing promotion relegation. You need to do something else. I'll talk about that in a little bit. You have Eric Wijnaldum, a former player who wants to ride the anger as an outsider to the system and implement promotion relegation all the way through. His only real experience is commentary and managing an NASL side and a smaller club side. I would not want to see him running this in the slightest. Landon Donovan, the epitome of arrogance of the U.S. men's national team players from this veteran group. He should, you know what, Donovan, just stay away from the game, play your little punditry, and be, you know, whatever businessman you want to be, but stay away from the presidency, stay away from running this. That's not something you are qualified to do. And we have Charlie Stilitano. He is a very well-connected organizer of the International Champions Cup in the United States every summer. It's a name that I don't think many people know, but he has great connections in Europe. He brings a lot of these European teams into the U.S. while defending the U.S. system. Although he is seen as a very antagonizing figure who was unsuccessful as a general manager of the Metro Stars. Now, what I'll say about him is he has connections in Europe, so he could potentially bring scouts and youth team managers from these bigger clubs in Europe and potentially lure them away to help the U.S. men's national team. He has had experience running a club before, which is something that I feel like a president should have some experience of, that because you will be put in that situation. I know he was unsuccessful as the Metro Stars, but that was a long time ago. When was the last time the Metro Stars even played? So there's been some time. He could have learned from his mistakes. And out of these groups of people who have put their name forward, I would say he's probably the best contention, the best one up there outside in him, and then maybe Paul Lapointe, perhaps. Who I would want is you know, a successful general manager or sporting director of a club. You've got Ali Curtis from Red Bulls, whose name is being put in there, Chris Klein of Los Angeles Galaxy, Garth Lagerwey from the Seattle Sounders, potentially Dave Checketts, the former Real Salt Lake owner, Claudio Reyna. He's not putting himself in there. He's got a great gig at NYCFC. You got Nelson Rodriguez, and you got a few others. I would love to see someone like that come in, someone who has experience taking a club. You know, Claudio Reyna would be a great pick for this. He has worked under, I believe he worked under Klinsmann as far as the technical staff or back work, or I think he was on the staff for Klinsmann, but he's the sporting director for NYCFC. He is building that club from nothing into a pretty solid team in an already crowded market in New York. I would love to see someone like that come in, because what you need to do is you need to overhaul the entire system. You need to be developing players from 11 to 18, from 18 to 23, and then creating a system in the U.S. that promotes more competition, but also makes MLS players or MLS clubs and other clubs have more of a financial reason to develop players for the professional game instead of just the college game. That would be something along the lines of maybe getting more money if and when the MLS sells players' rights to European teams. If you give them more of a financial incentive to sell to foreign teams, to European teams, South American teams, then that gives clubs not only of MLS or NASL or USL standard, but you could potentially get other clubs to recognize the financial benefit of developing players after 18. Because when you look at most clubs around the US, even in the development academy and outside of it, they have a financial investment or financial benefit from getting you from 11 to 18, and then from 18 getting you into a college system. And then once you're into a college game, they have no more financial investment in you. They're completely done with your development. They cast you aside. If you have a system in style that that's in place that would say, you know, from 18 to 23, if you continue to develop them or get them up to a professional level, you can gain financially from this as well. It might not attract all the clubs, but it'll attract more clubs to get into that critical stage of 18 to 23 and start developing more professional players. And even if they don't make it to the men's national team, maybe if they just go from a club 18 to 23 and then spend the rest of their career in USL or NASL, you're still boosting that player that starts off in NASL and moves his way up to MLS. You're boosting that player who goes from USL to MLS from a young age to an older age. That player then boosts up the young player in MLS who becomes better and maybe makes it onto the international stage, or he pushes the player in Europe who's 18 to 23 up to the national team. It's just a nice ripple effect that was actually seen. There was an American who went to Japan and did a similar effect where he went in and tried to increase the bottom level of the Japanese players. He tried to just increase the bottom level, knowing that that will have a greater effect on the top players than just training the top players, because the competition has to increase to become better than this bottom level. So perhaps that would be something that needs to be put in place here. The other thing that needs to happen from the president of US Soccer, the USSF, is getting an actual style and system set. In the US, we have a lot of different climate, we have a lot of different cultures, and we have many different systems that simply cannot coexist together. You've got the very South, you've got the Latin American community, you've got the East Coast, you've got the West Coast, and you've got the North. The North, you've got long ball systems, you've got possession-based systems, you've got hold-up play, you have counterattacks. We need to have a system in place. What I would like to see is a possession with a purpose style that's similar to the likes of Germany, France, Brazil, Argentina, and as well as a couple other countries. But we just need to have a style set. If we're going to go with a very Latin America roots of keeping possession and possession for possession's sake with getting a couple goals, the likes of you see it in Mexico, you see it in Spain, having that kind of style, then we need to have that set. We need to be developing those players. If we're going to go for a more direct style, which I would really hope we don't, we would need to see that style implemented, and we would need to see that kind of play. You look in the MLS, and that's very obvious. There are teams with possession with a purpose, there's teams with hold-up play, there's teams with direct, and that trickles down as well into the lower leagues. You look at, I watched 5 minutes of an NASL game, and I had to turn it off because it was awful to watch. You know, the build-up play for any one time, there was just a moment. It was about 5 seconds of a build-up play. It started from the keeper. He plays a long diagonal ball to his outside back, who headers it forward. The outside mid flicks it on, and the forward is running onto it. And that's considered a build-up play. That's considered a chance on goal. That's what they want. That is a completely different style from whatever the Latin American system is. And we just have too many conflicting interests, especially at these lower, supposedly developmental leagues, that completely conflict with what the MLS plays and what the international plays and what other teams play. And it's just, we have to have a more style set. So now, once you get that set, then that president needs to reset everything. Once you get rid of Galati, once you bring in the new one, now you need to completely reset everything. So head coach is the first thing that needs to be put in there. You need to bring in a head coach who will go and implement your style. So the first thing you need to do is realize that there are friendlies coming up. There needs to be an interim head coach, someone who knows some of these players, can kind of help transition a little bit, perhaps keep them in, perhaps get some of these old players their final retirement game, and then wait for the new president to name an actual coach. But this interim coach should not be making any big rash decisions. They should just be seeing the boat through until we get a new captain at the helm. So here are the favorites that a lot of people are touting, and here's, you know, kind of general idea of them. So the first one is Tab Ramos. You know, I love the idea of putting Tab Ramos in there. He's been around the U.S. men's national team for a while now. He was the technical director, worked close with Klinsmann on getting younger players involved, and he would be able to transition from there up to the head coach. He's already had a lot of head coach experience with the U20, so he knows a lot of these players already. He would be able to see the game, see the U.S. system from both sides. He would be able to transition all this young talent into the U.S., into the national team, and try and work there. So I love the idea of potentially having Tab Ramos. You have Caleb Porter. You know, he has great success with Portland. He had success with Akron, but I don't like him as a potential national team coach. I still remember the 2011-2012 fiasco when trying to qualify for the Olympics with a team that was supposedly the second best in the region, and we couldn't even make it out of the semifinals, and we barely made it out of the group. Oh no, we didn't even make it out of the group stage. I mean, that as that at the international stage means I would want to see Caleb Porter have more success either in MLS or go abroad and have some success there before bringing him in. Tata Martino is obviously one of the names that's always being thrown around. I would love to see him take the helm as well. He would have less pressure from the national team gig. He was with Paraguay, he was with Argentina, he's with Barcelona. Those are all very high pressure, result oriented now jobs in countries and in places that already had youth systems developed. So I don't know how well he would be able to transition from there, but obviously having less pressure on results and more of development, that could be something that might tempt him to take it. But he seems to kind of been out of the game, accepting the Atlanta United job in the first place. And Atlanta United is, you know, his job is pretty secure there. First year, already qualified for playoffs. They're doing really well. And frankly, I would say Atlanta United's probably might be a better team than the U.S. men's national team right now. So I don't see him moving anytime soon. Laurent Blanc, the former Bordeaux, France, and PSG manager, has been touted. I think it was more from France than from the U.S. as far as this rumor coming up. Certainly, he has the resume for it. I don't know if he would take it. I don't think he would also want to take the job either. He seems to, I don't think it would fit well with us. And it's not for the reasons that they're saying about how he doesn't know the MLS or the US system, because I think that's a load of crap. You can easily come in and it's not hard to research, it's not hard to scout. You know, there's the MLS, every game it has video, you all have this tape, you all have a set of players, you can talk to people who are still in the system, people who are under Klinsmann, under Arena. You can bring in new people from around the country. It's not hard to get set up from there. What I don't think he's a great why I don't think he would be a great position right now is we're a completely unpolished mess. We are completely out of there. So he had great success at PSG, which is already a final product that he helped bring over the edge. He was at France. It was kind of a downhill spiral. France at that point in time was what the US was around 2012. They still had some stars, but they were aging, and he didn't really transition well from those aging stars to a new talent, and it took him about 4 years to come back with some new talent and become the powerhouse that France is. And you know, with Bordeaux, he definitely is another reason why a lot of people are kind of going there, because Bordeaux was a team that wasn't very successful or wasn't great, and he turned out some success with them. But I don't think he's going to do it, especially with the way that the U.S. fans and everyone looked at Klinsmann and treated him and just kind of ran him down out of town. And you know, you get you get Klinsmann chased out of town for a former washed-up coach. Who's to say that won't happen again with Laurent Blanc and have us replace him with Bob Bradley? Whew, that could be a bad idea. Sam Allardyce is another one who's been floating out there after he recently rejected the Scotland job. He's still looking to come back. He's got a 100% record with England internationally, and he has this reputation for saving teams in relegation battles, but I would not want to see this at all. At this point, we need to start looking for the future, and the last thing we need is a Sam Allardyce style of play. His style of play is big, physical, long ball. Go forward, direct, defend hard, hunker down. That does not work when you're trying to develop talent and bring developed talent onto the national scene. His style of play will make CONCACAF minnows seem like top teams in Spain and Italy. The long ball mentality will also throw out a bunch of technical good players from the MLS and in favor of the Alan Gordons of the MLS, the CJ Sapongs of the MLS, and you'll just have a lot of talent. You'll have a lot of players at the international level who won't do well, and then if Sam Allardyce doesn't get the results and he's replaced, now you've just kicked the can down the road 4 years, and you've let a lot more talent just slip under the cracks. That's already happened before. I think Sam Allardyce would be a terrible decision for us. You've got the likes of Greg Vanney from Toronto FC and Peter Vermes, which are interesting candidates to me. I wouldn't count them out yet. I know they've only had pretty much MLS experience. They're young coaches, but they've both been kind of, they each bring different things. Peter Vermes has brought some younger players in. He's kind of got a little bit of a style to him. Greg Vanney has been having a good rotation at Toronto FC. I wouldn't want to see them bringing in old players from the MLS, the same thing that Arena did, but if they were able to fit to the style that the president want or the style I want, I wouldn't be opposed to having them come in and bringing in a bunch of youth talent as well. And while the youth talent learns on the international stage, these coaches can do that as well. It's not like these coaches are set in stone. They can still learn, they can still improve as long as they don't have the arrogance around them. The final one that I would say that I could name right now is Marcelo Bielsa, who's currently coaching in France, I believe. He is a former Argentine and Chile manager who's very fiery and an outside-the-box thinker of the game, which could be exactly what the U.S. needs for the next 4 to 8 years. His big problem, and one of the reasons that Gulati actually, Gulati was considering him, but he wasn't hired because he simply doesn't speak English. But the arrogance and entitlement that the U.S. soccer has right now would easily be crushed by Bielsa. He would come in and he would just let everyone know what is actually going on, not telling them what they want to hear. And if you have a president who backs him for 4 years and is willing to listen to Don Garber in his ear saying, Bielsa's saying that our MLS is not up to snuff with international level, he needs to go, and the president says, no, this is what you need to hear, that would be good. But will that happen? I don't know. And then finally, another one to consider is, maybe you let this interim manager take over until after the 2018 World Cup. There's bound to be 6 or 7 countries who want to win it, but there's only going to be one winner. So countries may let go of managers, and there's top managers from the world that we might not know are available yet, and just wait till the World Cup is done, interview them, see if they're interested in the job, and perhaps you can hire them as well. So there is some options with taking managers as well once you get the president situation. Now, Here's the big part. Here's the one that a lot of people want to hear, and this is the roster, the players that need to go, all right? Here's the big gut. You got to cut a ton of these players out, and you got to bring up certain other players as well. So, players that need to go. As far as goalkeepers, you've got Raimondo and Howard. Both need to go. You can have a retirement game for both of them. I don't care. Bill Hamid needs to go. He was this huge, big, next best keeper, never left DC, never went to Europe to challenge. He's struggled now in DC, and now he's finally looking to Europe. It is too late for him. He needs to go. Sean Johnson is 2 years older. Same thing as Bill Hamid. Needs to get out of there. You got Robles and Fry. I have some questions about Rowe, Bingham, and Bendik. They're kind of older right now, and I feel like there are better goalkeepers that we can stay, particularly Brad Guzan. He is 33. He moved back to Atlanta United. I think he can probably go for another year and then take on the Nick Rimando role where he's just consistently brought up and he's a good option if we need him. But I would love to see Ethan Horvath of Club Brugge in Belgium. Have him come in. You have Brad Guzan ahead of him, mentoring him, and have Horvath win the starting job over him and take us through the next 10 years, next 15, whatever. He's only 22 years old. He's doing solid so far, and he would need exposure. And I think exposure on the national level will help him grow on the club level and get better. You know, he's at Club Brugge at 22 years old. He played in Norway before that. If you get him international experience, that makes him more valuable. That means higher clubs in Europe will take a look at him, potentially pick him up. He'll get better playing time or better competition, play better, has a potential to grow and become even better at a club level if you give him that international exposure, and that can only benefit the U.S. As far as defenders, who needs to go? You got Gonzalez, Beasley, Tim Ream, Villafana, Zusi, Orozco, Lijaj, Hedges, Morrow, Spector, Evans, Marshall, Kemp. All need to go. Cut the fat right now. Just get rid of them. Thank you for your service. You're done on the international stage. Defenders to keep. Yedlin, he's a young, fast outside defender, developing well in the Premier League. He's playing well with Newcastle. He's getting experience there. Let him develop. Keep him on the international stage. Get him international experience as well. He's definitely someone who should be shining come next World Cup playoff time around. Geoff Cameron, I say you keep him. I know he is old. I know he's older than some of the people I said to cut, but he is a veteran defender that can help keep us together for 2 years. He's still at the Premier League level. He's still mid-table Premier League, playing for Stoke City, playing 90-minute games for Stoke City. And I would say right now, it's not an important thing for his age. His age isn't important right now. Down the road, it will factor. But I would want to keep a couple of veteran defenders here just to help bring the youth in. You don't want to bring a backup line of, young 20-year-olds and then just have them struggle and then go into World Cup qualifying with no experience on that whatsoever. Geoff Cameron can bring them in so that by next World Cup qualifying experience, we may have a young back line, but they at least have some idea of what they need to be doing. And you could still have Cameron there to come into some certain games that might be difficult and just bring that veteran experience. Matt Miazga should definitely stay. He's a developing player from the Red Bulls who caught the eyes of Chelsea to the point that they bought him on transfer and then sent him on loan to develop somewhere else. Maybe he makes it at Chelsea. Maybe he goes down a little bit, but he's already at the very top of Europe with Chelsea, who consider him there. If he doesn't get picked up, he can still go to a mid to upper level Premier League team or to another big club around Europe. Let him develop. He could take a little bit of time to develop with the national team, but that can help his career. It might cement him a job at Chelsea. It might get him a higher club elsewhere in Europe. And perfect thing to pick up right here. He's a center defender. Pair him next to Geoff Cameron for the next 2 years. Why not? Why not have a veteran defender who plays in the Premier League partner up with Matt Miazga and get them working together and get Miazga to the next level? That could be, and that should be, Cameron's job, to mentor Matt Miazga and mentor the other ones. You can keep Burnsbaum and Garza hang in there as young center backs at the age of 26, but I think they should just kind of be your backups, and you're looking to get younger talent maybe within the next 4 years. In 4 years, the U17 World Cup national team might turn out some center backs who are of the level. They recently got knocked out of India in the quarterfinals against England. You might find some talent there, and that talent might further develop. So until they develop at the stage that we can bring them into the national team, keep Birnbaum, keep Garza around. But then as soon as that comes there, maybe you can rotate them out. Matt Polster, he should get a shot at the national team. He's only 24. He's at that age where it's kind of make or break for him. He's still in MLS, so I would hope that if he makes it in the U.S. national team, that he looks to try and maybe go somewhere in Europe. But it's up to him. Timothy Chandler is the other one that I would put as a veteran defender alongside Geoff Cameron to help rebuild the back line. He's still doing it for Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, so why would we get rid of him when he could still potentially fill that veteran role. And it's not a veteran role where it's, you know, he's a veteran defender in the US, let's keep him around, or he's a veteran defender in Mexico. No, he's still playing at a very high level. The Bundesliga is a very high level. It's top 5, one of the top 5 leagues in the world, and he's still able to do it for a team in the Bundesliga at his age. Keep him around, let him help develop our new back line, and then retire. You got Walker Zimmerman and Keegan Rosenberry that are like Matt Polster, 24 and 23 years old, respectively. They need to prove it if they are international quality or not. This is around the time that they should do it. And then you also have Cameron Carter-Vickers. He is the 19-year-old Tottenham, currently on loan at Sheffield United in the Championship, 2nd Division in England. He needs time to develop at the club and international stage. He should be given shots. He should be allowed to earn some time. He should make some mistakes, but get better. International stage is a place that can help him cement his role in Tottenham. Tottenham are a top club right now in England. Who knows how long they're going to be able to keep their top stars, but they may look to reload. And if we can develop Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tottenham might be able to reload, and he could be one of those key players in their reload section there, and that can only help the U.S. men's national team. So we move now to midfielders that need to go. Bradley, Bedoya, McCarty, Fellhaber, Johnson, Pontius, McNamara, sorry. Jones, Kleshchin, and a little bit of a question on Joe Corona. I'm not sure. He's 27. He's still playing in Mexico. He started off in Mexico when he was young, but he hasn't really moved since there. I still have a little bit of questions about him, but he could potentially stay. But what you need to do is in the midfield, you got people that you can potentially keep. Darlington Nagbe, he never really got a fair shake, whether it was through injuries or just not called up. He still probably needs a final shot to prove if he should be around in 4 years at the age of 31 or not. Pulisic definitely needs to be there. If he's not there, something's gone horribly, horribly wrong with him and the U.S. men's national team. We wouldn't even be, you know, upset about not qualifying for World Cups if he wasn't there. He pretty much carried us through the last part of that and carried a lot of this poor team through there. We got Paul Arriola, Christian Roldan, and Kellen Acosta, who should get some playing times and try to get into the European game to get some better experience. They're young. They're playing in the MLS. Give them some international exposure, and then perhaps they can get into perhaps a European team will take a chance on them and have then they can prove whether or not they're at the international quality or not. If they are stuck in the MLS due to one reason or the other, they might be considered role players, I would say, in the future, being, you know, finally cut or last man on the roster. But I hope that they do manage to earn some playing spot and move into Europe. Kellen Rowe is another one. He may be a little old to develop, but a potential contributor to the 2022 qualifying shouldn't be out of the question for him. You got Kenny Saif, a young Israeli-American player currently at Ghent. He switched over from the Israeli team. He used his one-time switch to the American national team. He's only 23 years old. This should be another one of those gems that we find out of nowhere in Europe with that dual citizenship that turns into a solid contributor on the international scene. Then next up, you have Will Trapp, the 24-year-old solid player for Columbus who should get a serious shot at the national team. I would love to see him move to Europe as well. He's gotten some high praises from some retired, most notably Andre Pirlo, who when he first came over played against Columbus and gave praise to Will Trapp. I would love to see him go to Europe and get, you know, better competition on a weekly basis. Just to kind of cement his spot at the national team, because he's definitely someone who should be there. You got Sebastian Lletget. He's kind of a curious case. You know, he has West Ham experience. He's only 25, but he hasn't really done anything significant at club level, and he was only really brought in by Bruce Arena when he came back. You know, he wasn't the huge star player on the Galaxy. He was signed by you know, West Ham and had the contract extensions, but he never really did anything. You know, he had a disease early on when he was 21, and those crucial stages where he needed to develop into a professional status, he never really did it. And then from there, he came over to the U.S. He should have a very short leash, but I don't think he's completely out of it yet. You have Kekuta Mane. He should be in the squad, and he should be pushed to play European soccer. He's only 22 years old. He's had great success in MLS right now, and he could have a great competition ahead of him. I just want him to have better competition to move himself from 22 when he turns 24, 25, 26, to have better competition week in and week out to make him a better player. You have Lyndon Gooch, who should be getting some more appearances with the national team. His club team, Sunderland, are struggling in the second division in England. They're in a relegation spot already, and he will be, if we want him to be a player, if he wants to be a solid player at the international stage, he will need assistance moving and keeping his career going strong. Another one that is surprisingly still in here that we shouldn't give up on is Julian Green. He's only 22 years old. He should be brought back into the scene. Not a guaranteed rollout like we had in the 2014 World Cup. It was a necessary sacrifice at that point just to get him to commit to us instead of Germany. He's on loan right now at a second Bundesliga side, Greuther Fürth, out of Nuremberg. He's coming from Stuttgart, who are in the Bundesliga right now, so he's still owned by Stuttgart, so they still have a lot of belief in his potential. I think he's way too young and way too talented to give up on, but I don't think it needs to be rolled out to him. I think he should come in and have to compete for a spot, and that way you could find out whether or not he should be there. Another one who should be competing for a spot is Caleb Stanko. He's a young player who should be getting appearances on the international level. He played for SC Freiburg's second team and helped them in the second Bundesliga achieve promotion in the first Bundesliga. He's currently on loan in the Swiss Super League in Switzerland, and he's only 24 years old. So that's that age where it's make or break, and I think he should be getting a fair shot at playing for the U.S. national team. And now finally we move to the forwards who need to go. You need to give Dempsey his retirement game. He is too old. He cannot carry this team anymore on his back. You need to get rid of Altidore. Altidore had his chances in Europe. He could struggled outside of Holland, and now he's back in the MLS playing for Toronto. I think he is done on the international stage. Wondolowski, I have no idea why he's still even on the team. His career should have been done after missing that sitter in the 89th minute against Belgium to put us through into the quarterfinals. Gyasi Zardes, Gyasi Zardes was supposed to be this next big thing coming out of the LA Galaxy. He got pushed out of there. He never left the Galaxy to go play somewhere else. He never left to go play in Europe, and now he's 26 years old, so he's no longer the young up-and-coming player. He needs to get out of there. CJ Sapong and Alan Gordon need to get out of there. We need to get away from that system of having a big center forward who all he does is beat up on center backs and contributes nothing else to the team. As far as forwards that we should probably hold on to, Bobby Wood still hammering in goals for the U.S. men's national team and for Hamburg while they're still in the Bundesliga. If Hamburg somehow get relegated from the Bundesliga, he will be picked up by another Bundesliga team. He is playing very well. He should be our first choice starter every time. Bobby Wood should be not only in the roster but on that starting lineup. Juan Agudelo, he had a bright future ahead of him, but he seems to have kind of squandered it. He went to Holland, he went to England. Things didn't work out for him. He had like a year of like mystery, and then he came back for New England. He's only 24, so it's not like his future has been completely squandered, but it's now make or break for him. It's do or die time. Does he succeed, or does he become another Gyasi Zardes? Jordan Morris is someone who should still be on the roster. He's still young, and he could learn from some mistakes, like not playing for Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga. I think maybe in a couple years he might, if he has the right international coach, pushing him to get out of Seattle, to get out of his comfort zone and go play somewhere that will challenge him. Then, you know, maybe he can become a contributor on the U.S. men's national team, but he's no longer the golden child. Pulisic came in, took over that golden child role, and showed him what he could be if he was playing in the Bundesliga. I think that could potentially light the fire under him and get him going. Dom Dwyer, he is old, but he is playing that center forward role that is ageless. He just got eligible, and he's been doing what no striker I've seen outside of perhaps Bobby Wood has been able to do. He's just an absolute predator. He operates within the 6-yard box. He can easily play that role for the next 4 to 6 years. He's just an absolute goal scorer. All he needs is the service, and he is there. He came in, and I remember watching him for those first 2 games, and it's like, oh my God, we have one of those forwards now. That is exactly the kind of forward that we need. Someone who's just there to scrappily get a goal within 5 yards. So what? He scores. And then another one who should probably stay on the team is Aron Johansson. He's a solid creative striker when he's healthy. He's still playing for Bundesliga side Werder Bremen. He just came off of an 11th month injury. He's still trying to work his way back in the team. Werder Bremen have a new manager right now, so he's trying to break into there. He got a suspension before that as well, so breaking into the squad is going to be hard for him. But he shouldn't be overlooked for the future, and he's only 26 years old, so he still can contribute for the next World Cup cycle. So I wouldn't count him out yet. And then obviously you have younger talent that any future manager and technical director feels is worthy of appearances. I didn't want to go through the U23, the U20, the U19, the U17, the U18 teams of that nature, because it's very hard to predict where players will go from there to the professional scene. Obviously, if I was a technical director or the future manager, I could tell you which players are there, but you have to leave the spot open for some of them to come in as well. So that's what needs to happen with the U.S. men's national team. That's my opinion on it. I can talk about MLS and I can talk about the promotion relegation system. I haven't done any research on it, so I would not be comfortable in saying anything of that nature. But this is, this is what needs to happen. It's not good to just say, there's something wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, and then the only thing you propose as a change is introduce promotion relegation. This is what needs to be suggested, and you're not going to get it in 2-minute clips. This is what needs to be suggested as things to change currently at the U.S. men's national team. So I've been your fitness trainer, Joey. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I have a Discord channel in the comments, in the description of this video. Go ahead and join me. I am on Discord almost all day. I can chat with you there. There's a few channels on there that you can talk to other people who are interested in either the European game or into some national team stuff. Also, make sure to tune into my Crossbar podcast. So I host one early in the week and one later in the week. The early week, we make predictions on the Champions League. And if you get more right than me, as far as all 16 of the Champions League games and 10 Europa League games, I will give you a shout out on the podcast. If you manage to score within 24 out of the 26 games that you can pick, I will make a room for you to appear on the podcast as well. And then I am still working on How to Run Faster, my How to Run Faster series, working on some other trainings. I currently have just come off of playing professional career, so I've kind of let my eating habits go a little bit, so that's why I'm kind of hesitant to release that How to Run Faster video, because I would want to follow that up with more series, more trainings. But first I want to just kind of relax a little bit and then start to get back into fitness, get back into shape once I have my home life scheduled kind of figured out before working into that. And another thing I am looking at is, if you've ever watched Khan Academy videos, he has a nice little free draw board. I would want to do some tactics, explaining positions, explaining formations, how they function, how they work. I think that is a great video, a great idea. I have to make sure I can find a place to record that, find a way to make it work, but I would love to bring that to you guys as well. So make sure you subscribe for all that future stuff in future videos coming out that I will guaranteed bring out if you guys want me to. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.